Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Season of Discovery Hunter video. Today we will be covering melee weaving and everything you need to know about it. We will be covering why you should learn how to melee weave, the Weakauras and Macros you should be using to aid in melee weaving, the talent builds and runes you should be using, which consumables and weapon enhancements to use as well as buffs, and finally we will look at how to correctly melee weave and the rotations associated with both beast mastery and marksmanship. Starting off with the why you should melee weave is pretty straightforward. When done correctly, it will always result in a net gain for your DPS. It may take you some time to get comfortable and good at melee weaving, so my biggest advice is to always be practicing, whether you're still leveling up, questing and killing mobs for gold, or even open world PvPing. The more you do it, the faster you will build that muscle memory, and it will become second nature to just always be melee weaving. Also right now, the rotation is quite boring for hunters, especially as beast mastery, so why not challenge yourself a little bit and make the rotation a little bit more engaging. Now, before we jump right into melee weaving, we need to cover a few basics first. Let's look at the bare minimum required Weakauras and Macros you will need to have to properly melee weave and make sure you do it effectively. All of the Weakauras and Macros discussed and shown in this video will be linked in the video description below, and you can also find them in my Discord. The first Weakaura is a swing timer. I personally use Book's Hunter Swing Timer Weakaura as it's simplistic and easy to use while watching auto shot timings. The second required Weakaura is a rangefinder. For this, I use Rubot's Hunter Range Check Classic. As you will see throughout the video playing in the background above my nameplate, there will be a bar that displays either long range, in range, dead zone, or melee, each with its own color. For macros, the best option, which I personally use, is this macro which is shown on the screen now, and this macro will be posted in the video description as well and in my Discord, so you can quickly copy and paste it for yourself. This macro will allow you to spam the keybind while you run into melee range and cast both Flanking Strike and Raptor Strike. It is important to note though that if Flanking Strike is available, it will not be cast first. So the more min-max option is to keep Flanking Strike and Raptor Strike on two separate keybinds and always use Flanking Strike first if it's available. The second macro you will see now is to resume auto shots once you've completed your melee weave and you're back out to a ranged position. In Classic, there is unfortunately no toggle to turn on auto swapping between melee and ranged attacks depending on how far you are from your target, so you will need to manually start your auto attacks each time. Another quick change to melee weaving relevant for Season of Discovery is the interaction between your pet's attack speed and Flanking Strike. As I covered in my previous video, you will want to use a 2.0 speed cat such as Ghost Saber, as the slower attacking pet will result in higher Flanking Strike damage, and since pet speed provides no other DPS differences from a PvP perspective, there's no reason not to use a 2.0 speed pet if you're melee weaving full time. Looking now at the talent builds, you have two choices. In this Black Fathom Deeps run, I will be running as Beast Mastery as the spec is still ever so slightly better than Marksmanship, and I personally don't have the gear to even consider playing Marksmanship at this point. Starting with the Beast Mastery talent build, we have the 1600 build. For your runes, you will want Aspect of the Lion, Beast Mastery, and Flanking Strike. Now if you play Marksmanship, you will want to run the 5110 build, and if you're the sole hunter in your raid team, you will be using Aspect of the Lion in your chest slot rune. However, if there's a second hunter in your raid team, you can choose to use Master Marksman, which I would personally use. For the glove rune, you will use Chimera Shot, and for the leg slot, you will of course use Flanking Strike. The last thing to look at before we get into the melee weaving itself is the consumables, weapon enhancement choices, and world buffs, as these will all impact the effectiveness of your melee weaving. For consumables, you have a few options. If you're an absolute min-maxer, you will want to use Scroll of Agility 2, Scroll of Strength 2 on both yourself and your pet, a healthy stockpile of mana potions and minor recombobulators, as you're going to be burning through mana relatively quickly, and since scrolls are typically expensive due to being slightly better, you can opt for Elixir of Lesser Agility and Scroll of Strength 1 if gold is a concern to you. Next, we need to look at your weapon enhancement. Ideally, you will always want to have a Feral Druid with Wild Strikes for the Wind Fury buff, which will greatly increase your melee weaving DPS output. However, not every raid is going to have a Feral, so if you're unlucky with your raid composition, you want to use the Black Fathom Sharpening Stones, as the 2% hit chance will apply to both your melee and your ranged attacks. For the world buffs, we have 3 available to use in Phase 1. The first being the Dark Moon Fair buff, which is a 10% damage increase. It's pretty straightforward. You're not going to have access to this buff every single week, but when it is available, you absolutely want to get this. The second world buff is the Ashen Veil Rallying Cry buff, which increases all damage by 5%. You can acquire a Silverwing Battle Hymn if you're Alliance, or a War Song Battle Drum if you're Horde once a week, and save it until you're inside the raid instance, as you cannot chrono boon this buff. Finally, we have Boon of the Black Fathom. This is an important one specific to melee weaving, as not only does it increase your crit chance for both melee and range by 2% and increase your attack power slightly, but it increases your movement speed by 20%. This is a huge boost to melee weaving, as it would allow you to move back and forth between ranged and melee zones faster than ever before in Classic WoW. Okay, we've covered all the prep work necessary for melee weaving. Let's get into the rotations and how to correctly melee weave now. Starting off during an encounter, you will want to position yourself right on the edge between being in ranged and the dead zone. This will reduce the amount of time you need to spend running to the target. This may take a bit of time to learn hitboxes, but that's fine, as you will quickly see yourself make improvements with it as long as you stick to it. The color-coded rangefinder makes this super simple and easy to see when you reach melee range and when you're back out to the ranged, so position this Weakauras where you can easily see it without having to look too far away on your screen. Starting with the Beast Mastery spec, your rotation is very straightforward and simple. You will start the encounter with Serpent Sting on the pole when you're running in, auto shot followed by multi-shot immediately, wait for your next auto shot cast to go off, and then as soon as your auto shot goes off, start running to the target, use Flanking Strike and then Raptor Strike in that order, and then run back out to ranged. Afterwards, you will continue with auto shot, multi-shot, auto shot into Raptor Strike on cooldown, and repeat. It's as simple as that. I personally don't recommend using Arcane Shot in the rotation, as the mana required compared to how little damage it puts out is not worth the trade-off, especially if it's going to cause you to go during the encounter. If your kill times are short and you are 100% sure that you know you won't run out of mana, then you can add Arcane Shots right as your auto shot goes out whenever it's on cooldown. Now, if you choose to play Marksmanship, your rotation will be ever so slightly more complex, but still not bad. Starting off again, you will use Serpent Sting on the pole followed by auto shot, and then immediately start running into melee range while casting Chimera Shot on the move, and Flanking Strike plus Raptor Strike in that order once you reach melee range. Then back out for your next auto shot. Afterwards, you will cast Aim Shot, followed by your next auto shot, and then you will repeat the process again of using Chimera Shot on the move as you start to run in for Raptor Strike. After that second Raptor Strike, you will finish off with an auto shot into multi-shot, and then your rotation just repeats. One last quick rotation note for both Beast Mastery and Marksmanship is that if you do have Wind Fury available to you, then you can use Wind Clip to fish for additional Wind Fury procs for even more DPS. Typically, you would run in between each auto shot to use Wind Clip while Raptor Strike is on cooldown, and you can also use it following Raptor Strike if both are off cooldown during your next melee weave. This is by no means necessary to do, but it can pay off if you get extremely lucky with Wind Fury procs. Now we need to consider abilities and proc chances that will increase your attack speed, such as improved aspect of the Hawk procs, the Berserking Troll ratio if you're playing Troll, and the 10% attack speed bonus from your Void Touch leather gloves. In Phase 1, we currently don't have access to Rapid Fire, so you don't need to worry about that yet. But whenever your aspect of the Hawk procs by itself, there's no need to change your rotation at all. Now typically, you're going to want to try and stack all of your attack speed bonuses together, such as your aspect of the Hawk and your Void Touch leather gloves, and also Troll ratio if applicable. Assuming you have both aspect of the Hawk proc and you use your gloves together, you should only be going in for Raptor Strike and no longer try to fish Wind Fury procs with Wind Clip if you've been doing so. Otherwise, your rotation remains the same. On the other hand, if you're a Troll and you manage to stack all 3 attack speed bonuses together, then you should stop weaving entirely, as you're going to miss out on way too many auto shot casts for a single melee weave, which will result in a DPS loss even if done correctly. Your weapon speeds will also make a big difference in whether or not you should be using the max weave rotation or simply sticking to a Raptor Strike on cooldown rotation. Let's say you have Guardian's Trident with a 3.0 speed, you will definitely have time to weave in regular auto attacks between each auto shot. On the other hand, if you're using a very slow weapon such as Brutal War Axe of Agility with a 3.6 speed or Deadly Strike of the Hydra with a 3.5 speed, then your auto attack time would be too slow to properly max weave, and you'd end up sitting in melee range for too long, which is not worth it at all. We've now covered everything you need to know to get into melee weaving as a hunter in Season of Discovery. If you found this video helpful, then please like and subscribe. Also, let me know down in the comment section what you'd like to see next regarding hunters in Season of Discovery. It's been a few days now without any hunter changes, surprisingly, but Blizzard has mentioned there will be class changes and tuning done on a weekly basis, so if you don't want to miss anything, stay tuned for future videos, as I will be releasing updated videos highlighting all the changes to hunters as quick as possible. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.